Wait, what?
We can't talk about deepfakes without addressing the elephant in the room, porn. Women are constantly the target of this online abuse, and Kat Eschner, our lead researcher, is looking into this. Great to have you. How pervasive of a problem is this?
Big problem. So it's a little hard to put numbers on because AI is moving really fast, so the numbers are constantly changing. But most recent studies suggest that more than 90% of the deepfake content out there is sexualized generated images, aka deepfake porn. And this is obviously, most of it is of women, so obviously this is a case of violence against women.
When I think of porn, you have to also think about the ways that it has influenced tech. Right? People might not think about it, but virtual reality driven by the technology, behind porn. You think of some of the older technologies like VCRs or TVs, also driven by the porn industry. And you think about deepfake porn, though, is there a consistent rise that we are seeing?
Yeah, we are seeing a rise for sure. According to Security Hero, a firm that specializes in mitigating identity theft, the total number of deepfake videos has seen a jump of a staggering 550% since 2019. Since we know that 90% statistic in terms of the proportion of deepfake porn, we can say huge jump in deepfake porn. But that's not even the most terrifying statistic this group found. They found that 1 in every 3 deepfake tools allow users to create deepfake pornography. There's no real guardrails around this.
And the big target this year that people were talking about, Taylor Swift. There was explicit photos of her on X, and actually the platform itself, tried to erase her name, get rid of the search of her name, and it didn't work. Yeah. People could still see those images. The New York Times saying that one image was seen 47 million times. Kat, if the biggest pop star on the planet can't get rid of these deepfakes, what can an average person do?
Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of options. The technology is developing much faster than the laws, so it's really struggling to keep up. But I will say, if you're talking about a deepfake pornographic image of someone who's under the age of 18, that is still child pornography, which is still illegal, regardless of the fact the image is partly AI generated. So the police take that very seriously. And police here in Ontario are really seeing that some children are being targeted and exploited using this technique. Let's take a listen to Tim Brown of the Ontario Provincial Police.
Another big one is sextortion. And this is a very, very big subject right now. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection is monitoring the rise of sextortion quite closely in Canada and around the world. And they have some very interesting statistics that are quite alarming as far as the increase of this type of offending. But sextortion is, of course, when you have an image that is compromising to somebody and you use that image to extort them for one reason or another.
So if you're over 18, on the other hand, there are not a lot of options for you. In Canada, there's no federal law that prevents either creating or distributing deepfake porn. That said, some provinces do have essentially revenge porn laws on the books that do account for deepfake porn because they look at specifically altered images. Saskatchewan and British Columbia are 2 of those.
So no national law,
no.
But is there any kind of legal recourse for a woman that's going through this out there?
Yeah, of course. Some lawyers do argue that you can use existing laws, and there are cases where this has worked. So if a person is harassing you, maybe by doing this, that's enough for a harassment charge. There's possibly defamation might be found, or even you can make a human rights complaint. But the thing is, you need to know who is making and distributing the images, so you need to have identified them. And then for those kinds of legal actions, they also need to be in Canada, because if the person is in a different jurisdiction, legally, there's not a whole ton that we can do. So let's take a listen to Jordan Donich, a criminal and civil lawyer here in Toronto.
It's an evolving area of the law. It requires a lot of sophisticated law enforcement with training and technology to catch people. And obviously, that's going to be exploited in weaker countries around the world, because you can. But it really is becoming a global game of whack-a-mole. Right, you fix the problem in one jurisdiction and it pops up in another.
A global whack-a-mole. It's really difficult. So if somebody really wants to hurt you, Kat, can they do that with a deepfake and really have no responsibility?
Yes. The sad truth is yes. But I think it's important to stress that if that does happen to you, if that were to happen to you, it's not your fault. You have as much right as anybody else to be a digital citizen and be safe while you are online. All that said, I think there are a few different techniques you can use to sort of mitigate potential damage if you are really concerned. So one option is any accounts where you have photos of videos of yourself that are public, you can make them private accounts. So for example, you can make your Instagram private and sort of limit the footprint. There are also services such as Delete Me that can sort of go through your public internet footprint and delete things like your personal information online, including some social media images. So those are a few options, and there are also some emerging technologies that might be able to help out. But I think it's important to stress these are really early days. They are still possible to spoof. One of these is something called PhotoGuard, which essentially alters the pixels in a photo. You can see on the left here that's the original. On the right, that is the attempted deepfake. It alters them so the AI can't deepfake them properly. Now, again, can be spoofed. It is possible to get around this. Another technology is something like Google Synth ID, which is an emerging tool to help you spot fakes. It basically uses an invisible watermark to mark AI-generated content so you can tell it was made by an AI, which could help you spot fake content. But again, these are like very early days, and for the moment, there's not a ton of digital tools that will help.
Very complicated topic. We are just scratching the surface. Appreciate it, Kat. And our sister show here at TVO, The Thread with Nam Kiwanuka, is going to look into this in a much deeper way in the coming months. Nam is going to talk to a woman that was deepfaked, talk to her about the dehumanizing process that was and how she's trying to take her body and her image back. So you're going to want to watch for that in March. Until then, Kat, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, Molly.
This show is about helping you navigate the often confusing world of information out there. And we want to hear what you have to say. You can email your comments and suggestions to bigiftrue@tvo.org. And remember, you can watch our show anytime on the tvo.org website and our YouTube channel as well. And you can also find some special extra content on our Instagram page and other socials. I'm Molly Thomas. That is a wrap on this week's episode of Big If True. Have a good one, folks. We will see you next Sunday.